I've been to a lot of places, but I don't know whether it's because I was too young to remember anything or the trips just weren't memorable enough, but in general, I remember nothing from these trips. I do remember one trip though, when I was 12 turning 13. It was a trip to Anhui, China. Not that the mountains were yellow, but Yellow Mountain is the literal name of the mountains there, Huangshan. I wasn't quite happy with this trip in the beginning. I remember standing in front of the winding stairs leading all the way up into the sky, and I started sobbing. It was my birthday, and I was sad about having to be in the wilderness. There's no reception on the mountains. I hate physical activity. The movies on TV in the hotel rooms are mediocre. It's too hot, it's too cold, the water tastes weird, the air smells weird. Yes, I found a lot of things to complain about in the first hour or so. I got over it relatively quickly though, and started hiking. Then it became enjoyable. I pulled out my iPhone SE and took pictures of everything. I have pictures of an acorn on a rock and leaves, lots of pictures of leaves. Somehow when you're on a trip, everything seems to carry a lot more meaning than they do. One day I was really tired after waking up at 4 to hike and see the sunrise on the peak of the mountain, so my mom and I stayed in the hotel. My dad kept hiking though. He's an artist and the reason we went on this trip all together. He wanted to sketch and get inspiration for his art. Anyways, I was wrong about the movies in the hotel rooms. It was not mediocre. In fact, I watched two movies I've always wanted to watch. I don't remember which ones, but it was definitely good. Then my dad came back. He in fact had an interesting story to share. While he was hiking, carrying all his supplies, a random man walked up to him and offered to help. They started hiking together up to the peak. Then he explained why he approached my dad. My dad reminded him of his dad who had passed away from cancer a year ago. They started conversing about anything and everything. The man, turns out, is some sort of manager at the mountains. We told him he woke up at 4 to hike and watch the sunrise. He told us it was probably underwhelming. It was. The next morning, he brought us to a staff-only area. The sunrise there was perfect. No overcrowding 50 families on a single peak, no chattering voices, just the sun and the sky and my family. Well, and this random guy. I remember feeling very weird about this entire encounter. I did not like having a stranger with us, but this entire experience opened my eyes quite a bit. I'm not the only one who matters. My family is not the only family there. It's us and thousands of people sharing a mountain. There's also this guy who we were able to make a connection with. It's such a sweet memory to see strangers connect and to be brought into an intimate space not available to everyone. Moving on to now. This summer, I went back to Hong Kong after a year of being in America. It felt weird. I had to constantly reassure myself that I was still born and raised in Hong Kong. I felt too different. I was actively trying to find pieces and bits to bring me back to childhood because of how detached I felt to the city. I would also try to reconnect back to the local culture by listening to local music, which I never actually did before. It's funny how it's only after I come to America that I listen back to Hong Kong music. But I do notice random small changes between me and Hong Kong and America. For one, I get so much tanner in America. The concealer I bought in Hong Kong, a month after I came back to Web, became 2 shades too light. I've also become so aware of what little bits of American accent might slip out in my Canto. In Hong Kong, you generally walk everywhere, and when I first got back, this road I used to walk, it's like a 15-minute walk, became so energy consuming. I had lost that walking stamina because Americans drive everywhere. I feel like I've adapted to the dominant culture that is American culture, but not in a bad way. America has opened me up for such different perspectives. Here, I have difficult conversations about race and sexuality and the individual. These are things I would never have considered back in the day, or even dared to consider. I discovered aspects of myself, and like I said, I'm also much more confident in general because of the more inclusive culture. I'm able to express myself. And I do think because of these differences, I view Hong Kong in a new light. Maybe I've become somewhat of a local tourist, but I began taking pictures of everything like I did on the Yellow Mountain trip. I have an album of pictures I took in Hong Kong. It was so exciting tracing everything back to experience I had had. In the album, there's everything from food I ate, the traffic lights, the road, and a trash can. I felt mesmerized by everything I saw. Panels of metals piled up, tubes, cones, ladders, ripped tapestry. Amidst the shuffling mess stand several workers in bump caps and gloves, some in the shade, some out in the sun. The shadows lay perfectly and precisely below the figures. It smiles as sweat rolls down each of their cheeks. The harsh lines of the figures' shadows contrasts with the blur the leaves have created. Hanging above heads are bowing trees. They extend their branches like a mother attending to children. There is comfort, there is care. The shadows mesh with the sand on the ground. it is soft, it is tender. I found this tenderness in everything I saw. Ever since leaving Hong Kong in 2020, in the midst of political turmoil, Hong Kong had been deteriorating. COVID obviously plays into this economical deterioration, but in general, spirit has been down. But this summer, when I went back, despite this lingering understanding that Hong Kong is a possibly separate construct is no longer, that Hong Kong is in fact China, that Hong Kong probably peaked in the 80s or so, I found comfort. It's funny, but to hear cussing and swearing in Canto is probably the most comforting thing ever. I also found the thoroughly mundane or even negative experiences comforting, like walking an hour from district to district and taking the bus or taking the metro, or hearing the sounds of traffic lights and the voice on the speakers of the subway telling you to mind your steps, or in general, the chattering voices on the streets. All in all, I am grateful for these travel experiences. I have gained a deeper appreciation of the city I grew up in. These experiences have also shaped me into a better person, better in the sense that I'm no longer as self-centered in my understanding of the world, better in the sense that I understand myself more now.